A house full of wealth, yet empty of life until a girl appeared at the door. The child's poverty and the millionaire's loneliness met in the silence of the night. The kindness of a simple gesture renewed what money could never fill: the soul. If this beautiful story of resilience and love interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you are watching us from. Continuing. The December dawn smothered Miami with its humid, heavy heat. Richard Montgomery, at 42 years old, walked through the marble corridors of his Coral Gables mansion, his bare feet echoing in the silence that had become his most faithful companion. It had been 3 months since sleep had completely abandoned him. 3 months since Catherine had passed away, taking all the joy of that house with her. The businessman stopped before the office window, observing the perfectly manicured gardens that stretched to the high perimeter wall. His hands trembled slightly as he held a cup of cold coffee, his fourth, that night. His eyes, once bright and determined, now carried the deep mark of someone who was surviving but not truly living. The financial empire he had built over 20 years seemed to no longer have any meaning. The numbers on the spreadsheets were merely empty symbols on a screen he stared at without seeing. Upstairs in the pink bedroom, his daughter Lily was sleeping. The 6-year-old girl had barely spoken since her mother left, turning into a silent shadow of herself. Her toys remained untouched, storybooks gathered dust on the shelf, and that smile that used to light up. The entire house had vanished along with Catherine. Richard closed his eyes, allowing the memory of his wife to flood him once more. Catherine always said that no one should go hungry in this world, especially children. She had grown up in the inner city outskirts, had known the hardness of necessity, and even after becoming wealthy, she never forgot her humble origins. For years, she had insisted they do something for the less fortunate, but Richard always made excuses. Too much work, too many responsibilities, a lack of time. Now time was all he had, and it weighed like lead on his shoulders. A strange movement outside caught his attention. It was nearly 3 in the morning, and something was moving near the trash bins of the neighboring estate. Richard approached the window, narrowing his eyes to see better in the gloom. At first, he thought it was an animal, a stray dog or cat, but then he clearly saw a small human figure, a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old, thin as a twig, with torn and dirty clothes hanging loose on her frail body. She was barefoot, and her small hands were desperately rummaging through the trash bags, looking for something, probably food. The scene hit him like a punch to the stomach. Richard felt his legs grow weak. The image of that fragile child, alone in the middle of the night, seeking sustenance in the trash, awakened something he believed had died along with Catherine. It was as if his wife's ghost were there, whispering in his ear the stories she used to tell about her own childhood, the nights of hunger, the fear, the loneliness. Without a second thought, Richard set the cup on the desk and ran for the door. His bare feet hit the cold concrete of the driveway as he slowly approached the girl. She saw him coming and recoiled, her eyes wide with terror. It was a look Richard recognized, the same fear Catherine had described so many times when talking about the adults who crossed her path in her childhood. "Hey, take it easy," Richard said softly, stopping a few yards away. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl remained motionless, like a cornered animal, clutching something against her chest with desperate strength. Richard noticed it was a piece of moldy bread she had managed to rescue from the trash. "Are you hungry?" he asked, his voice choked with emotion. She nodded almost imperceptibly without lowering her guard. "Come with me. I have real food inside." The distrust in the girl's eyes was total, but hunger spoke louder. Slowly, she followed him to the mansion, maintaining a safe distance. When Richard opened the door and turned on the lights, she blinked several times, clearly overwhelmed by the luxury surrounding her. In the kitchen, Richard prepared a simple sandwich, placed a glass of milk beside it, and pushed the plate toward her. The girl devoured everything in seconds, as if she hadn't eaten in days, which was likely true. "What is your name?" he asked gently. "Anna," she whispered, wiping her mouth with the back of her dirty hand. At that moment, light footsteps came down the marble staircase. Lily appeared at the kitchen door, rubbing her sleepy eyes. She was wearing pink flannel pajamas with unicorns on them, and her blonde hair was messy from sleep. When she saw Anna, she stopped immediately. The two girls stared at each other for long seconds. Lily, with her expensive dresses and room full of toys, and Anna, barefoot and starving, represented completely opposite worlds. But something passed between them, a silent recognition of the pain they both carried. Lily approached slowly, and without saying a word, picked up one of the rolls Richard had left on the counter. She offered it to Anna with a timid but affectionate gesture. Anna accepted it, and for the first time Richard saw a faint trace of a smile on her dirty face. "Daddy," Lily spoke, her first word in weeks. "Can she stay?" His daughter's innocent question woke Richard from his emotional trance. He looked at Anna, who had finished eating and was now observing everything, around her with a mixture of wonder and suspicion. Then he looked at Lily, whose eyes shone with a spark he hadn't seen since Catherine's departure. "Anna," Richard said, kneeling to be at the girl's eye level. "Where are your parents?" Anna lowered her eyes and murmured something inaudible. "I can't hear you," he said softly. "Mommy is sick," Anna whispered. "Very sick. She can't get out of bed." Richard's heart tightened even further. "And your daddy?" Anna shook her head negatively, indicating she had no father or that he wasn't present. "Where do you live?" Richard insisted. Anna pointed, vaguely toward the direction of a neglected area a few miles away, hidden behind the commercial buildings of the upscale neighborhood. Richard felt the world collapse on him once more. That girl, fragile and starving, had walked miles in the middle of the night to scavenge for food, while her mother lay agonizing alone in some precarious shack. It was Catherine's story repeating before his eyes, but this time he had the power to change the ending. "Anna," Richard said, his voice thick with emotion, "I want to meet your mother. Can you take me to her?" Anna hesitated, biting her lower lip. She clearly wasn't used to trusting adults, let alone wealthy ones who seemed to live in another world. But something in Richard's tone, in the genuine kindness of his gestures, or perhaps in the affectionate way Lily looked at her, made her finally nod in agreement. Richard grabbed his car keys and quickly put on a shirt and shoes. Lily insisted on coming along, firmly holding Anna's hand. The trio climbed into the black Mercedes, and Anna gave directions with the precision of someone who knew every street in that area. As they moved away from the wealthy neighborhood and entered the poorer parts of the city, Richard felt a knot growing in his stomach. The streets became narrower, the houses more dilapidated, and the reality he had always avoided facing presented itself raw and painful before his eyes. Anna guided them through a narrow alleyway between wooden and tarp-covered shacks, where open sewers ran alongside children playing barefoot. The smell was strong, a mixture of dampness, trash, and misery that made Richard instinctively cover his nose. "It's here," Anna said, pointing to a plywood shack with a corrugated tin roof. Richard parked the car, and the three of them got out. Lily stayed close to her father, clearly overwhelmed and a bit frightened by an environment so different from her protected reality. Anna pushed open a wooden door that creaked loudly and called out softly, "Mommy, I brought someone to meet you." Richard entered the tiny, dark space, lit only by a candle nearly at its end. What he saw made him stop abruptly, as if he had taken another punch to the chest. The woman lying on the thin, stained mattress looked like a ghost. Richard felt his legs weaken when the faint candlelight illuminated her face. Lucy couldn't have been more than 30, but illness and poverty had aged her prematurely. Her brown hair, once beautiful, was now dull and matted to her sweaty forehead. Her large, dark eyes, though glazed with fever, had the same sweetness Richard recognized in Anna's eyes, and they were exactly like Catherine's. "My God," Richard whispered, clutching his chest. The resemblance was haunting, not just physically, but something deeper, a silent dignity that persisted even in extreme adversity. It was as if Catherine were there, lying in that miserable shack, desperately needing help. "Mommy," Anna ran to her mother's side, taking her skeletal hand. "I brought a good man. He gave me food." Lucy tried to sit up but lacked the strength. her eyes fixed on Richard with a mixture of shame and despair. "Please, sir," she murmured in a raspy voice, "don't call social services. Anna is all I have. I'll get better, I promise." The words hit Richard like stabs. How many times had Catherine told him identical stories of her own mother, begging not to have the family separated? How many times had his wife cried, recalling the constant fear of losing the only bonds she had in the world? "I didn't come here to separate you," Richard said, his voice breaking. "I came to help." Lily, who had remained silent by her father's side, timidly approached the mattress. The wealthy girl, accustomed to silk sheets and fluffy pillows, looked at the scene with wide eyes, trying to process a reality she had never imagined existed. "Mom," Lily said, with the seriousness of an adult, "my mommy got sick too. She couldn't get out of bed in her last days either." Lucy tried to smile at the girl, but the effort made her cough violently. Richard noticed bloodstains on the rag she held to her mouth. The situation was much worse than he had imagined. "Anna," Richard knelt beside the girl, "how long has your mother been like this?" 2 weeks since she could get up," Anna replied, wiping her nose with the sleeve of her torn shirt. "Before that, she coughed a lot at night. I go out to look for food because she can't work at Mrs. Miller's house anymore." Richard felt his stomach churn. A 7-year-old child supporting a sick mother, walking miles in the night to scavenge trash while he wasted food in his mansion and drowned in self-pity. "Lucy," he said, moving closer to the woman, "I need to take you to a hospital. Now." "I don't have money for a hospital," she whispered, closing her eyes in exhaustion, "and I can't leave Anna alone." "Anna is coming with me. You are both coming with me." Lucy opened her eyes again, studying Richard's face. "Why do you want to help us? You don't know us." The simple question carried the weight of a lifetime of disappointments and abandonments. Richard looked at Anna, who was holding her mother's hand so tightly her knuckles were white. He looked at Lily, whose eyes shone with a new intensity, and then he looked again at Lucy, whose suffering face transported him directly back to Catherine's final days. "Because someone I loved very much taught me that no one should suffer alone," Richard replied, his voice cracking slightly, "and because I failed her, I won't fail you." The tears Lucy had been trying to hold back finally rolled down her cheeks. "Sir, I can't pay—" "I'm not asking for payment," Richard interrupted. "Just let me help, please." Over the next 40 minutes, Richard transformed that shack into a hub of organized activity. He called his private doctor, Dr. Henry Morris, waking him in the middle of the night and explaining the situation in few words. Then he called a private ambulance that would arrive in 20 minutes. While they waited, Lily surprised everyone. The girl, who had become mute and apathetic since her mother's death, began talking to Anna, asking about her life, her fears, her dreams. It was as if someone else's pain had awakened her from her own grief. "Anna, do you go to school?" Lily asked, sitting on the floor beside her new friend. "Oh, I can't. I have to take care of Mommy," Anna replied, playing with a scrap of cloth that served as a doll. "When your mum gets better, you can study at my school. It's really cool. It has a library and a playground." Anna looked at Lily with a mix of hope and disbelief. "A rich school? Girls like me don't go to rich schools." "Of course they do," Lily said with the absolute conviction of a child. "My daddy has a lot of money. He can make you go." Richard observed the girls' conversation while organizing Lucy's few belongings. Into a plastic bag, there was almost nothing: some old clothes, expired medications that clearly weren't working, and a yellowed photo of Anna as a baby in the arms of a younger, healthier Lucy. When he picked up the photo, Richard felt another shock. The young Lucy looked even more like Catherine, the same protective pose holding the baby, the same tender smile, the same light in her eyes. It was as if fate were playing a cruel trick on him, or perhaps offering a chance at redemption. The ambulance arrived punctually, with 2 experienced paramedics who treated Lucy with professionalism and care. When they placed her on the stretcher, Anna panicked, clinging to her mother's hand. "Don't leave me, Mommy, don't leave me alone." "Anna," Lucy murmured, using her last strength to hold her daughter, "go with the good man. He will take care of you until I get better." "Promise you'll get better," Anna sobbed. "I promise, my child." I promise." Richard picked Anna up in his arms as the paramedics took Lucy to the ambulance. The girl cried desperately, her small body trembling with fear and despair. Lily, touched by her new friend's pain, took Anna's hand and whispered, "Don't cry. My daddy always keeps his promises. Your mum is going to be okay." At Riverside Medical Center, the best private hospital in the city, Dr. Henry Morris was waiting with a full team. Richard had known the doctor for over 10 years. He was the one who had cared for Catherine in her final months. When Henry saw Lucy being brought in on the stretcher, his eyes met Richard's in an exchange charged with painful memories. "Richard," Dr. Henry said softly, "she is very weak. I'll run every test possible, but do everything, everything. Money is no object." While Lucy was taken for exams, Richard sat in the waiting room with the two girls. Anna was inconsolable, alternating between sobs and periods of haunting silence. Lily remained by her side, offering tissues and words of comfort, with a maturity that didn't match her 6 years. "Why are you helping us?" Anna asked suddenly, her eyes red from crying, fixed on Richard's face. The question caught him off guard. How could he explain to a 7-year-old the complexity of guilt, lost love, and the need for redemption that were driving him at that moment? "Because a very special person taught me that helping others is the most important thing we can do in this life," Richard replied, choosing his words carefully. "Lily's mommy?" Anna asked, looking at the blonde girl. Lily nodded sadly. "My mom always gave food to hungry people. Daddy would get mad sometimes, but she said it was more important to be good than to be rich." Richard felt a pang in his chest. Catherine really did say that, constantly, and he had always countered with arguments about safety, about not being able to save everyone, about focusing on their own family first. Arguments that now sounded hollow and selfish in his own head. 2 hours passed before Dr. Henry returned with the results. His serious face did not bode well. "Richard, I need to speak with you in private," the doctor said. "You can speak in front of them. They have the right to know." Dr. Henry hesitated but continued. "Lucy has severe pneumonia, acute malnutrition, and profound anemia. Her immune system is completely compromised. The situation is grave." Anna started crying again, more softly this time. "Is she going to die like my daddy?" The question hit Richard like a bolt of lightning. "Anna, your father. He left when I was little. Mommy said he went to heaven, but I know he just didn't want to stay with us anymore." Richard closed his eyes, feeling the weight of another painful revelation. That girl hadn't just lost a father. She had been abandoned by him, just as Catherine had been abandoned by hers as a child. "Anna," Richard knelt in front of her, taking her small, dirty hands, "your mother isn't going anywhere. I'm going to make sure she gets well. And you too. You won't be hungry or cold or scared anymore, I promise." "Why?" Anna whispered. "Why do you care about us?" Richard looked at Lily, who was anxiously awaiting his answer. He looked at Anna, whose desperate eyes begged for a reason to hope. And for the first time since Catherine had left, he knew exactly what to say. "Because you remind me of someone I loved very much, and because that person would be very disappointed in me if I didn't do the right thing now." Dr. Henry intervened gently. "Richard, I'm admitting Lucy for at least 2 weeks. She needs intensive care, IV medication, and a series of treatments, but there is a chance for a full recovery if everything goes well." "And the girl?" the doctor asked, looking at Anna. "She's staying with me," Richard replied without hesitation, "until her mother fully recovers." Anna looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and fear. "What if social services takes me away from you?" "That won't happen," Richard said, his voice filled with determination. "I'll take care of all the legal paperwork. You'll be safe." But as they were leaving the hospital that morning, a man in a dark suit intercepted them in the parking lot. He introduced himself as Detective Miller from Child Protective Services and Juvenile Affairs. "Mr. Montgomery," he said, "we received a report regarding a minor in an irregular situation under your care. I need to speak with you." Richard's heart raced when he saw the detective. Anna immediately hid behind him, clutching his leg with desperate strength. Lily, sensing the tension in the air, firmly held her new friend's hand. Detective Miller. Richard managed to keep his voice steady despite his nervousness. Can you explain what this report is about? The man, approximately 50 years old with graying hair and a stern expression, consulted a small notebook. We received an anonymous call stating that you removed a minor from her residence during the early hours of the morning without legal authorization or the knowledge of the proper authorities. Anna wasn't removed from anywhere, Richard replied, controlling his irritation. I found her scavenging through trash on the street, starving and alone. Her mother is admitted right in there, he pointed to the hospital, in critical condition. Anna began to tremble, her fingers digging into Richard's leg. The girl had developed a deep trauma regarding authority figures, a result of years living on the fringes and in constant fear. Even so, Mr. Montgomery, the detective continued, there are protocols to be followed. A child in a vulnerable situation cannot simply be adopted informally by a private citizen, regardless of your good intentions. So what should I have done? Richard couldn't contain the revolt in his voice. Let her starve to death on the street while I filled out forms? Lily, with the typical bluntness of a child, intervened. Do you have children too, sir? The detective seemed surprised by the question. I do, yes, 2. And if your children were hungry and a good man helped them, would you be mad? Lily asked with an innocent but devastating logic. The detective sighed, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Look, Mr. Montgomery, I understand your concern, but we have procedures for a reason. We need to ensure this child is safe. She is safer with me than she was on the street, Richard countered, and her mother verbally authorized me to care for her. Verbal authorization has no legal value. I need to take the girl to a temporary shelter while we resolve the situation. Anna let out a scream of despair that echoed through the parking lot. No, please don't take me. I promise I'll be good, I promise. The sound of despair in the girl's voice made the detective hesitate. Richard saw the opportunity and took it. Detective, give me 24 hours. I will provide all the necessary documentation, speak with lawyers and regularize the situation. But do not separate this child from the only stability she has known in months. Daddy, Lily whispered, tugging at her father's shirt. He can't take Anna. She'll end up like I did when Mommy left. Lily's innocent comparison hit the detective hard. He looked at Anna, who was crying silently, then at Richard, whose desperation was genuine, and finally at Lily, who was protecting her friend with fierce determination. 24 hours, he said finally. But I want all the documentation in order. Legalized temporary guardianship, a medical evaluation from the child's mother, and a full report of the situation. If everything isn't correct by tomorrow, I'll have to follow protocol. As the detective walked away, Richard knelt in front of Anna, who was still shaking with fear. Anna, listen to what I'm going to tell you. No one is going to take you from me. I'm going to resolve all the paperwork today. Promise? She whispered. I promise. But when they arrived at the mansion, Richard realized the problem was bigger than he had imagined. His private lawyer, Mark Ferris, arrived in less than an hour and brought complicated news. Richard, the situation is delicate, he explained while the girls played in the garden. For you to obtain temporary guardianship of Anna, you need to prove you have the means to care for her, that the mother formally authorized it, and that there are no other suitable relatives to take on this responsibility. Lucy is hospitalized unconscious most of the time. How is she going to give formal authorization? Exactly the problem. And there's more. We discovered that Lucy has a sister, Vera Stanton, who lives in rural Alabama. According to records, she is married and has stable financial conditions. Richard felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. A sister? Vera Stanton. Married, 2 children, husband is a public employee. On paper, she would be the most suitable option to take Anna. Anna doesn't even know this woman. That doesn't matter to the law. Blood ties take priority over temporary emotional bonds. Richard looked out the window at Anna, who finally seemed relaxed, playing with Lily on the swing set. The two were laughing, a sound he hadn't heard in his house for months. The idea of separating the girls, of tearing Anna away from an environment where she finally felt safe, was unbearable. Is there any way to avoid this? He asked. only if the sister doesn't want to or can't take the girl, or if we can prove that it would be detrimental to Anna to be separated from you." That afternoon, while Lily showed her toys to Anna, Richard received a call from the hospital that made his blood run cold. "Mr. Montgomery," it was the tense voice of the head nurse, "you need to come here urgently. Mrs. Lucy had a crisis and is asking to speak with you." They left Anna with the governess, Mrs. Gable, a 60-year-old lady who had worked in the house for over a decade. Mrs. Gable had immediately fallen in love with the girl, treating her with the affection of a grandmother. At the hospital, Richard found Lucy awake, but visibly weaker. Her breathing was labored, and her glazed eyes revealed she was under heavy medication. "Richard," she whispered as he approached the bed. "Anna, where is Anna?" "She's safe at my house with Lily. How are you feeling?" "Not very well." Lucy tried to smile but was interrupted by a coughing fit. "I need to tell you something important. About Anna." Richard leaned closer. "You can tell me." She isn't my biological daughter." The revelation hit Richard like a bolt. "What?" "I found Anna when she was 2 years old, abandoned in a park. She was malnourished, bruised, clearly mistreated. I could never find out who her real parents were." Richard felt the world spin. "Did you adopt her? Legally?" Lucy lowered her eyes, ashamed. "I didn't have the means for a legal adoption. I was very young, didn't have a steady job, but I couldn't leave her alone. I raised her as my daughter for 5 years. And the sister, Vera. She really is my sister, but she never knew about Anna. We grew apart when I left Alabama 8 years ago. She didn't approve of my lifestyle choices." Richard quickly processed the information. If Anna wasn't Lucy's biological daughter, and if Vera didn't even know the girl existed, the legal situation became even more complex. "Why are you telling me this now?" he asked. Lucy gripped his hand with what little strength she had. "Because I'm getting worse. The doctors won't say it, but I know my body is giving up, and because you are the only person in the world I trust to take care of Anna." "Don't talk like that. You're going to get better." "If I don't get better," Lucy continued, ignoring the words of encouragement, "I want Anna to stay with you, forever. She loves you, and Lily is like a sister to her." "Lucy, promise you won't let them take her to an orphanage, or to people who don't know her. Promise you will fight for her." Richard looked at the suffering face of the woman who had sacrificed herself for 5 years to give love and protection to an abandoned child. It was like looking at Catherine again, the same generosity, the same strength, the same capacity to love unconditionally. "I promise," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Lucy smiled for the first time since he had met her. "Thank you. Now I can rest." But as Richard left the room, Dr. Henry was waiting for him in the hallway with a somber expression. "Richard, I have to be honest with you. Lucy's condition has deteriorated significantly in the last few hours. The infection is spreading, and she isn't responding to antibiotics as we hoped." "What does that mean?" "It means you might need to prepare to take care of Anna for much longer than you thought." Richard returned home with his head buzzing with worries. When he arrived, he found a scene that surprised him. Anna was teaching Lily how to make bracelets with colored string. The two of them sitting on the living room floor, focused and happy. "Daddy!" Lily ran to hug him. "Anna taught me how to make a friendship bracelet. Look how pretty." She showed him an irregular bracelet made of frayed string, clearly a child's work, but a pride shone in Lily's eyes that Richard hadn't seen in months. "How is Mommy?" Anna asked, setting aside her own bracelet. Richard hesitated. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that the person she considers her mother might not survive? How do you prepare a girl who has already lost everything for another devastating loss? "She's fighting to get better," he finally said. "The doctors are taking very good care of her." Anna nodded, but Richard noticed she knew something wasn't right. There was a precocious wisdom in the girl's eyes, the result of a life marked by suffering and uncertainty. That night, after the girls went to sleep, Anna in the guest room that Lily insisted on decorating with her own toys, Richard received a call that made his heart stop. Mr. Montgomery, it was Detective Miller's voice, we just made contact with Vera Stanton in Alabama. She is coming to Miami tomorrow morning to pick up her niece. The next morning arrived heavy as lead. Richard had barely managed to sleep, spending the night drafting strategies to keep Anna by his side. At 7 in the morning, he found the two girls in the kitchen, eating breakfast prepared by Mrs. Gable. Anna ate slowly, her swollen eyes revealing that she had also cried during the night. "Daddy," Lily whispered when Anna went to use the bathroom. Why was Anna crying in her sleep? She was calling for her mommy and saying, "Don't take me away." Richard's heart tightened. Anna is worried about her mother at the hospital. "She doesn't want to leave our house, right, Daddy? I heard her talking to herself that she wants to stay here forever." Richard knelt in front of his daughter, holding her small hands. "Lily, Anna might have to go live with some other relatives of hers for a while." Lily's face completely crumpled. "No, she can't go. She's my sister now. I don't want to be alone again." His daughter's words cut Richard like razors. Lily had emerged from her deep grief precisely because of Anna's presence. The two girls had become inseparable, each filling a void in the other's life. To separate them would be to traumatize both all. Over again. Anna returned from the bathroom and immediately sensed the tension in the air. "What's wrong, Lily? Why are you crying?" Lily threw herself into her friend's arms, sobbing. "I don't want you to go away. You're my only real friend." Anna looked confusedly at Richard. "I'm going away. Where?" Richard took a deep breath, knowing he could no longer delay the conversation. "Anna, you have an aunt, your mother's sister, who wants to take you to live with her." Anna's face went pale instantly. "I don't know any aunt. Mommy never talked about any aunt." Sometimes families grow apart and— "I don't want to go," Anna screamed, surprising everyone with the intensity of her reaction. "I want to stay here with you and Lily. You are my family now." Mrs. Gable, who was watching from the kitchen door, couldn't hold back her tears. In just 2 days, Anna had conquered everyone's heart in the house. The girl helped with chores, played joyfully with Lily, and brought a vital energy that had been missing since Catherine's death. At 10 in the morning, the intercom buzzed. Richard answered with a knotted stomach, knowing it was the moment he feared. "Mr. Montgomery? I'm Vera Stanton. I've come for my niece." The voice was harsh, impatient. Richard took a deep breath and authorized the entry. When he opened the mansion door, he found a woman of about 35, with short, austere hair, dressed in simple but clean clothes. Her face was hard, marked by labor and a life without luxuries. Beside her stood Detective Miller. "Where is Anna?" Vera asked without greeting, looking around the luxurious living room with a mix of disdain and envy. "She's playing in the garden with my daughter, but before anything else, I'd like to talk to you about the situation." Vera crossed her arms. "There isn't much to talk about. Anna is my niece, blood of my blood. A child belongs with real family, not with rich strangers playing house." The acidity in Vera's words revealed much about her intentions. Richard realized she saw Anna more as a familial obligation than as a child in need of love and care. "Do you know Anna?" Richard asked, trying to keep his tone neutral. "Of course I know her. She's my sister's daughter." "When was the last time you saw her?" Vera hesitated for a moment. "It's been a few years. But that doesn't matter. Family is family." Detective Miller intervened. "Mr. Montgomery, we understand your concern, but the law is clear. In the absence of parents, close relatives have priority over third parties." At that moment, Anna and Lily appeared at the living room door, holding hands. Anna looked at Vera with curiosity and suspicion, clearly not recognizing her. "Anna," Vera called out, "I'm your Aunt Vera. I've come to take you home." Anna hid behind Lily, clutching her friend. "I don't know you. Where were you when Mommy and I were hungry?" The innocent but devastating question made Vera flush with anger. "Don't disrespect me, girl. Your mother chose the life she wanted. I have my own family to care for." "Then why do you want to take me now?" Anna countered with a courage that surprised even Richard. "Because it's my duty. Your mother can't take care of you anymore." Vera's words sounded like a death sentence. Anna began to cry, not the whiny cry of a spoiled child, but the deep mourning of someone who sees her life being destroyed again. "I don't want to go. Uncle Richard gives me good food, Lily is. My sister, and no one screams at me here." Vera laughed with disdain. "Sister, you aren't even in the same social class, girl. This life here is a fantasy. With me, you'll learn to work and be useful." Richard felt anger rise in his throat. "With all due respect, Mrs. Stanton, Anna is not a servant. She's a child who needs love, education, and affection." "Love doesn't pay the bills," Vera replied coldly, "and too much education gives people ideas above their station. Anna will learn to be humble and hard-working with me." Lily, who had remained silent, suddenly exploded. "You're mean! Anna isn't going with you. Daddy, don't let her take Anna." "Lily, go to your room," Richard said softly. "No, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to tell everyone you're stealing my sister." Detective Miller sighed. "Mr. Montgomery, this is becoming traumatic for the children. I ask that you facilitate the process." Richard knelt in front of Anna, holding her small, trembling hands. "Anna, listen. I will visit you always, I promise. And as soon as I can resolve the legal situation, I'll bring you back." "You won't be able to," Vera interrupted cruelly. "Anna is going to live with me in Alabama, far away from all this wealth that will only create false expectations in her head." Vera's casual cruelty made Richard realize that this woman was in no emotional condition to care for Anna. But legally, his hands were tied. "Can I at least take Anna to say goodbye to her mother at the hospital?" Richard asked. Vera consulted her watch impatiently. "Fine, but make it quick. My bus leaves at 3. At the hospital, Lucy's situation had worsened drastically overnight. She was connected to more machines, breathing with difficulty, drifting in and out of consciousness. When she saw Anna enter the room, she tried to smile. "My daughter," she whispered, in an almost inaudible voice. Anna approached the bed, holding her mother's skeletal hand. "Mommy, this woman wants to take me away. She says she's my aunt." Lucy's eyes fixed on Vera, who remained at the door with an impatient expression. "Vera? My sister Vera?" "Hi, Lucy," Vera replied dryly. "I've come for the girl. You can't take care of her anymore." Lucy tried to sit up, but had no strength. "Anna. Anna stays with Richard," she murmured with difficulty. "You aren't in a condition to make decisions," Vera replied, "and legally I have more right than a stranger." "She isn't my biological daughter," Lucy managed to say, each word a monumental effort. Vera frowned. "What do you mean by that?" Richard intervened quickly. "Mrs. Stanton, can we talk outside? Anna needs a moment alone with her mother." In the hallway, Richard explained Anna's true origin to Vera. The woman listened with an increasingly irritated expression. "You mean I spent 2 days traveling and spent money I don't have to pick up a girl who isn't even part of our family? Anna was raised by your sister for 5 years. She is your niece in heart, if not in blood." Vera laughed bitterly. "Heart has no legal value. If she isn't Lucy's real daughter, then she isn't my real niece." Richard felt a spark of hope. "So you don't want to take her anymore?" "I came all this way. I lost time and money. Someone has to compensate me for this loss." Vera's true nature was fully revealed at that moment. She didn't care about Anna. She was only calculating how she could profit from the situation. "How much do you want?" Richard asked, feeling disgusted with himself for even asking. $10,000. That covers my travel, my lost work days, plus compensation for the trouble." Richard was willing to pay any amount, but Detective Miller interrupted. "Forgive me, but that constitutes the sale of a child, which is a crime. I cannot allow this type of negotiation." Richard's hope shattered instantly. Vera, realizing she wouldn't get a financial gain, decided to take Anna out of pure spite. "If I can't have the money, at least I'll have the girl. She can work at my house, watch my kids. She'll be useful." When they returned to the room, they found Anna hugging Lucy, both crying. The scene broke Richard's heart. "Anna!" Vera called out sharply. "We're leaving! Now!" "Mommy, don't let her take me," Anna begged. Lucy, using her last strength, gripped Richard's wrist. "Please," she whispered, Fight for her. Don't let that woman. But before she could finish the sentence, Lucy had a violent seizure. Alarms went off. Nurses rushed into the room, and Anna was pulled away from her mother amidst the medical chaos. Vera took advantage of the confusion to grab Anna's arm. "Enough drama. We're leaving now." "No," Anna screamed, struggling. "I want to stay with Uncle Richard. I want to stay with Lily." But Detective Miller backed Vera, and Anna was physically dragged from the hospital, her screams echoing through the hallways. Richard tried to follow them, but Dr. Henry held him back. "Richard, Lucy is in critical condition. She's asking for you." When Richard returned to the room, Lucy was connected to even more machines. Her eyes, however, were lucid for the first time in days. "Richard," she whispered, "Anna has a scar, shaped like a star, on her right shoulder. When I found her, there was a piece of papers in her pocket." "What paper, Lucy?" "I kept it, all these years, in my house, under the mattress. It's important." Dr. Henry approached Richard with a grave expression. "She's entering a coma. This might be your last chance to speak to her." Richard held Lucy's hand. "I'll find that paper, and I'll bring Anna back. I promise." Lucy tried to smile one last time before her eyes closed. At that moment, Richard understood that the real battle for Anna was only beginning, and that the paper hidden in Lucy's shack could change everything. Richard left the hospital with a broken heart and a single obsession: to find the paper Lucy had mentioned. It was nearly 5 in the afternoon when he arrived at the impoverished outskirts where Anna and her mother lived. The shack looked even more miserable under the orange light of the sunset, with its plywood walls and oxidized tin roof. The door was ajar, swaying with the wind. Richard entered the tiny space, illuminating the area with his cell phone flashlight. The thin mattress where Lucy had agonized was still on the floor, stained with sweat and tears. Feeling disgusted with himself for rummaging through a dying woman's belongings, Richard lifted the mattress. There it was, a yellowed envelope, sealed with old tape. With trembling hands, Richard opened it. Inside was an official document from Miami General Hospital, dated 5 years ago, and a crumpled birth certificate. When he read the documents, Richard felt the world spin around him. The birth certificate was for Anna Clara Montgomery. The father was listed as not declared, but there was an attached medical note. Child found in a state of abandonment, evident signs of mistreatment. Temporary guardian, Lucy Stanton. Case referred to the district attorney's office. Richard reread the document 3 times before the information took hold in his mind. Anna had the last name Montgomery. It couldn't be a coincidence. Montgomery was a common name, but something about this whole situation was either terribly wrong or terribly right. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Dr. Henry. "Richard," Lucy woke up. "She's asking for you urgently. She says it's a matter of life or death." 20 minutes later, Richard was once again by Lucy's bedside. The woman looked like a ghost, but her eyes burned with a desperate intensity. "Did you find the paper?" she whispered. "I found it." "Lucy, why does Anna have the last name Montgomery on the certificate?" Lucy closed her eyes, gathering strength for a revelation she had kept for 5 years. "Because when I found her, in the park, she had a bracelet on her wrist." "What bracelet?" "With the name engraved, Anna Montgomery. Someone had abandoned her, but wanted them to know her real name." Richard's heart raced. "Do you still have this bracelet?" "It's in the small envelope sewn inside the rag doll that Anna always carries." Richard remembered the doll. Anna had it with her when Vera took her away. A tattered rag doll the girl protected like a treasure. "Lucy, I need more details. Where exactly did you find Anna?" "Bayfront Park, middle of the night. She was unconscious, beside a bench, bruised. Someone had beaten her." The pieces began to fit in Richard's mind. 5 years ago, he and Catherine lived in a penthouse near downtown. Catherine was pregnant. but they lost the baby in the 7th month of pregnancy. It was a terrible period that nearly destroyed their marriage. "How old was Anna when you found her?" Richard asked, his voice almost inaudible. 2 years old now, or 2.5. Very small, very scared. Richard did the math quickly. The dates matched. Catherine had lost the baby in January, and Anna had been found by Lucy in March of the same year. But that was impossible. His baby had been born stillborn. The doctors confirmed it. "Lucy," Richard held her hand tightly. "I need to know everything. Every detail of how you found Anna." Lucy breathed with difficulty, clearly making a superhuman effort to speak. "It was at 3 in the morning. I was coming back, went from work, hospital, as a janitor. Anna was alone, crying, dressed, in expensive clothes, small, leather shoes." Expensive clothes? A dress, white, hand-embroidered. It looked like a christening gown, or an important party. Richard felt his legs weaken. Catherine had bought a dress exactly like that for the baby they lost, a hand-embroidered white dress that had cost a fortune. She had kept it in the closet, saying it would be for when we have another baby. And there was no one else around? No adult? No one, Anna, but was abandoned, completely alone. She had marks on her little body, as if someone had hurt her on purpose. The revelation hit Richard like a bolt. Someone had intentionally hurt Anna before abandoning her. A 2-year-old child, dressed in expensive clothes, abandoned in downtown Miami in the middle of the night. "Lucy, did you take Anna to a hospital? Did you report finding her to the police?" "I tried, but at the hospital they said it was a case for social services, and I was afraid they'd take her to an orphanage. So I lied. I said she was my daughter." Lucy had another coughing fit, more violent than the previous one. When it stopped, there was blood in her mouth. "I need to tell you one more important thing," she whispered, growing weaker. "What?" "The bracelet didn't just have the name Anna Montgomery. It had a date engraved on the other side." "What date?" "January 15th, 2019. Richard felt the world collapse. January 15th, 2019 was exactly the date his baby with Catherine had been born. The date that was engraved in his heart as one of the most painful days of his life. "That's not possible," Richard murmured, more to himself. "Richard," Lucy called him with a voice growing fainter. "Anna could be your lost daughter." The revelation was like a punch to the stomach. Richard had to lean on the chair to keep from falling. If Lucy was right, it meant Anna hadn't been born dead as the doctors said. It meant someone had lied to him and Catherine. It meant his daughter had been kidnapped and abandoned. "But the doctor said the baby was born without life," Richard stammered. "Doctors can lie, can be bought," Lucy whispered. "Anna has a scar, shaped like a star, on her shoulder. Do you remember if your baby had any birthmark?" Richard remembered instantly. During the ultrasound, the doctor had mentioned a birthmark on the baby's right shoulder, a mark he and Catherine joked about, calling it a lucky little star. "Oh my God," Richard whispered, tears beginning to stream down his face. "You need to get Anna back," Lucy murmured. "She is yours. Your blood daughter." But at that exact moment, Dr. Henry entered the room with a somber expression. "Richard, I need to speak with you. Lucy's condition has deteriorated very rapidly. The next tests will determine if she has a chance of surviving the night." Lucy heard the doctor's words and gripped Richard's hand with surprising strength. "If I don't survive, and promise you will seek the truth about Anna. Promise that you will protect my daughter of the heart." "I promise," Richard said, his voice choked with emotion. "I will find out the truth, and I will bring Anna back." Meanwhile, 500 miles away in a small town in rural Alabama, Anna was living a nightmare. Vera's house was small, hot, and always full of shouting. Vera had 2 sons of her own, Peter, 10, and Mark, 12, who greeted Anna with immediate hostility. "This one's sleeping on the kitchen floor," Vera announced when they arrived. "And let's be clear right now. There's no princess life here. You're going to work like everyone else." Anna, still traumatized by the sudden separation, tried to explain. "Aunt Vera, I miss Uncle Richard and Lily." "Enough!" Vera screamed, slapping Anna's face so hard the girl stumbled. "You don't talk about those rich people here. Forget that make-believe life. This is your reality now." Vera's sons laughed at the scene, clearly used to their mother's violence. Peter, the younger one, spat on the floor near Anna's feet. Is the beggar girl going to live here?" "I'm not a beggar," Anna whispered, clutching her rag doll tightly. Mark, the older one, snatched the doll from Anna's hands. "What an ugly thing, I'm throwing it in the trash." "No!" Anna screamed, trying to recover her doll. "It's mine! It's all I have!" Vera intervened, but not to defend Anna. "Mark, leave the doll with her. At least she'll have something to hug when she cries for the good life she lost." Vera's casual cruelty made Anna understand that her new life would be very different from the safety and affection she had found at Richard's house. That first night, Anna slept on the cold kitchen floor, using only an old towel as a blanket. She held her rag doll tightly, whispering softly, "Uncle Richard is going to come get me. He promised." But as the days passed without news, Anna began to lose hope. Vera made her work from early morning, washing dishes, cleaning the house, taking care of the boys' clothes. When Anna complained of fatigue or asked for food, she received shouts and sometimes slaps. "Children don't call the shots here," Vera always said. "And a child who isn't even my real daughter calls them even less." Vera's sons followed their mother's example, treating Anna like a domestic servant. They made her tie their shoes, carry their backpacks, and clean up the messes they purposely created. "Anna, clean this up," Peter ordered, after purposefully knocking a glass of juice onto the floor. "Anna, wash my shirt," Mark commanded, throwing his dirty laundry in the girl's face. A week passed without Anna receiving any affection or kind word. She cried every night, hugging her doll, remembering the warmth of Richard's house, Lily's smiles, and Mrs. Gable's delicious food. "Mommy Lucy," she whispered to the doll, "why did you let that mean woman take me? When are you going to get better so you can come get me?" Anna didn't know that, at that exact moment, Richard was discovering the most shocking truth of his life, and that this discovery would change both of their fates forever. On the following Monday, Richard received a call that made his heart stop. Lucy had suffered a cardiac arrest during the night. The doctors managed to resuscitate her, but she was in a deep coma. "It could be a matter of hours," Dr. Henry said gravely. "If you want to say goodbye to her, you'd better come now." But when Richard arrived at the hospital, he found a scene that would change everything. Beside Lucy's bed stood a man in a dark suit he had never seen before. "Mr. Montgomery," the man introduced himself. "I am Dr. Maurice, a medical examiner. I need to speak with you urgently regarding Anna Stanton. We have information that could completely change this case." Richard looked at the medical examiner, his heart racing. "What information?" Dr. Maurice opened a folder full of documents and photographs. "Mr. Montgomery, I worked at Miami General Hospital 5 years ago. I was on duty in the maternity ward the night your wife gave birth." The world seemed to stop around Richard. "You were there when my baby was born?" "Yes, and I need to tell you something that should have been revealed a long time ago." Dr. Maurice paused, clearly uncomfortable. "Your baby was not born stillborn, Mr. Montgomery. Your daughter was born healthy, crying, perfect." Richard felt his legs weaken. He held onto the chair beside Lucy's bed to keep from falling. "That's impossible. Dr. Henry told me personally that she had been born dead." "Dr. Henry lied, and I was forced to lie too." The doctor's voice trembled. "There was a baby trafficking ring operating in the hospital. Babies from wealthy families were kidnapped right after birth and sold on the black market." Richard couldn't process what he was hearing. "Are you saying my daughter was kidnapped?" Your wife was under general anesthesia due to complications during birth. When she woke up, Dr. Henry said the baby had been born without life. But in reality, your daughter was taken by a corrupt nurse named Sandra Oliveira. Tears began to stream down Richard's face. 5 years of grief, 5 years thinking his daughter was dead, when, in reality, she had been stolen from him. "Why didn't you report this before?" Richard asked, his voice thick with anger and pain. "Because Sandra Oliveira threatened me. She said if I spoke up, she would kill my own family. I have 2 small children, Mr. Montgomery. I was afraid." "And what changed now?" Dr. Maurice pointed to a document in the folder. Sandra Oliveira was arrested last week for another baby trafficking case. During the interrogation, she confessed to several crimes, including the kidnapping of your daughter. Richard took the document with trembling hands. It was a detailed confession, where Sandra admitted to kidnapping Richard and Catherine's daughter and selling her to a couple who later abandoned the child when they discovered she had behavioral problems. "Behavioral problems?" Richard asked. "The child cried constantly, couldn't adapt to the new parents. According to Sandra, the couple who bought your daughter returned her after only 2 months, demanding their money back. And what did Sandra do? She abandoned the child in Bayfront Park in the middle of the night. She said in her confession that it wasn't her problem what happened after." Richard felt nauseous. His little daughter, only 2 years old, abandoned alone in downtown Miami by an unscrupulous criminal. "Dr. Maurice, are you sure Anna is my daughter?" "The dates match perfectly, and according to Sandra's confession, your daughter had a star-shaped birthmark on her right shoulder." Richard remembered the scar Lucy had mentioned. "I need to see Anna immediately. I need to do a DNA test." "Mr. Montgomery, there is another problem. Sandra Oliveira didn't act alone. Dr. Henry Morris was the leader of the ring. He forged death certificates, manipulated exams, and received the bulk of the money from the sales. The revelation was like a punch to the stomach. Dr. Henry, the doctor Richard had trusted for years, the same one who cared for Catherine, was the one responsible for destroying his family. "Where is he now?" Richard asked, feeling a murderous rage grow in his chest. "He fled the country as soon as he heard Sandra was arrested, but he left a trail. We have documents proving he sold at least 15 babies in the last 5 years. Richard looked at Lucy, still unconscious in the hospital bed. That simple woman, living in misery, had saved his daughter. She had found Anna abandoned and raised her as her own, giving her the love and protection her true parents didn't even know she needed. "Dr. Maurice, with this information, can I get custody of Anna back? More than that. With a DNA test proving she is your biological daughter, Vera Stanton will have no legal right over her." Richard felt a mixture of hope and despair. Anna was his daughter lost for 5 years, but at that moment, she was suffering at the hands of a cruel woman hundreds of miles away. Meanwhile, in Alabama, Anna's suffering was becoming unbearable. It had been 10 days since she arrived at Vera's house, and the situation only worsened. The girl had lost weight, her eyes were always red from crying, and she could barely sleep on the cold kitchen floor. "Anna, get up!" Vera screamed that morning, kicking the girl's ribs hard. "It's 6 o'clock, there are clothes to wash and floors to scrub." Anna stood up slowly, her small body aching from days of forced labor. Vera made her work from dawn until late at night, always accompanied by shouts and insults. "Aunt Vera," Anna whispered, "can I call Uncle Richard, just to see how Mommy—" "Lucy is," Vera laughed cruelly. "What Mommy Lucy, girl? Your fake mother died yesterday. I got a call from the hospital." Anna felt the world collapse. "No, that's not true." "It is. And now you have no one in the world but me, so you'd better get used to your new life." Vera's lie was like a knife to Anna's heart. The girl collapsed on the floor, crying desperately. Lucy was the only person she considered a real mother, and knowing she had passed away without her being able to say goodbye was devastating. "Stop crying," Vera screamed, giving Anna another kick. "Dead people don't come back, and you crying won't change anything." Vera's sons, Peter and Mark, watched the scene laughing. They had become experts at psychologically torturing Anna. "Now you're a real orphan," Peter said, making a face. "No one in the world wants you." "Uncle Richard wanted me," Anna sobbed, hugging her rag doll. Mark snatched the doll from her hands violently. "That Uncle Rich guy lied to you. If he really wanted you, he would have come to get you by now." "Give me back my doll," Anna screamed, trying to recover her only consolation. "What? An ugly doll?" Mark examined the tattered toy. "Looks like a dead rat." He began to pull the doll apart, tugging at the string threads that held it together. Anna threw herself at him, desperate to save her most precious treasure. "No, please, it's everything I have from my real mother." But Mark was much stronger. He continued dismantling the doll until something fell to the floor, a small envelope sewn inside the toy's body. "What's this?" Vera picked up the envelope, curious. Inside was a small gold bracelet with an inscription, "Anna Montgomery, 1/15/2019. "Montgomery?" Vera frowned. "Why is this name here?" Anna stopped crying for a moment, looking at the bracelet she had never seen before. "I don't know. Mommy Lucy never told me about that." Vera studied the bracelet closely. The gold was clearly expensive, well crafted. It wasn't the kind of jewelry a poor family like Lucy's could buy. "Mark, glue this doll back together," she ordered sharply. "And no one says a word about this bracelet to anyone, understand?" Vera tucked the bracelet into her pocket, her mind working rapidly. If Anna had expensive jewelry with another last name, perhaps there was something more lucrative in this situation than simply using the girl as a maid. That afternoon, while Anna worked in the yard washing clothes, Vera made a mysterious call. "Hello. Is this the investigative report team for Alabama TV? I have a story that might interest you. It's about a rich girl who was abandoned and is now living with me." Anna, who was nearby, heard fragments of the conversation and felt a chill. Something in Vera's tone indicated she was planning something bad. At night, Anna cried while hugging the remains of her patched-up doll. "Uncle Richard," she whispered softly. "Where are you? Why don't you come get me? I promise I'll be a good girl if you take me home." But Anna didn't know that, at that exact moment, Richard was driving down the highway toward Alabama with the documents that would prove she was his daughter. He had traveled all night, desperate to reach her, nor did she know that Vera had discovered the bracelet and planned to use that information to get money, even if it meant completely destroying Anna's chances of ever being happy again. Richard's phone rang when he was only 30 miles from the town where Anna was suffering. It was Dr. Morris with news that made his heart stop. "Mr. Montgomery, we just received a preliminary DNA test. Anna Stanton is a 99.9% match with your genetic material. She is your daughter, without a shadow of a doubt." Richard slammed his foot on the accelerator, tears streaming down his face. His daughter was alive, but she was in the hands of a cruel woman who had no idea of the treasure she had in her house. But when he arrived in town, Richard received a call that would change everything once more. "Mr. Montgomery," it was an unfamiliar voice. "This is the Alabama State Police. You need to come to the station immediately. Anna Stanton has disappeared from the house where she was living." Richard arrived at the police station with his heart racing and his hands sweating cold. The officer in charge, a middle-aged man with a tired expression, received him with gravity. "Mr. Montgomery, I'm Officer Banks. The situation is grave. Anna Stanton disappeared 8 hours ago from Vera Stanton's residence." "What do you mean, disappeared?" Richard asked, feeling panic take over his chest. "According to Vera Stanton's report, she left Anna alone at home for a few hours to go to the grocery store. When she returned, the girl was gone. The front door was open." Richard didn't believe Vera's version for a second. "Officer, I need to tell you something important. Anna is not Vera Stanton's niece. She is my biological daughter." The officer frowned. "What do you mean?" Richard quickly explained the whole situation: the kidnapping of babies at the hospital, Sandra Oliveira's confession, the documents found in Lucy's shack, and the DNA test confirming his paternity. "Mr. Montgomery, these are very serious allegations. Do you have documents to prove this?" Richard handed over all the paperwork he had brought from Miami. The officer examined everything with increasing attention. "If this is true," the officer said, "then Vera Stanton is illegally holding a child who has no kinship with her." "Exactly. And now she has made Anna disappear." We're going to interrogate Vera Stanton again, but first, I need you to identify the house where Anna was living." When they arrived at Vera's house, Richard felt nauseous seeing the precarious conditions of the place. The small, dirty and stifling house was completely inadequate for a child. Worse still was when the officer showed him where Anna slept, on the kitchen floor with only an old towel as a blanket. "My daughter slept here?" Richard whispered, his eyes filling with tears. According to neighbors, Vera Stanton treated Anna like a domestic servant. The girl worked from early morning and received little food. Richard examined the place where Anna had suffered for 2 weeks. In the corner of the kitchen, he found some drawings scribbled on the floor with charcoal. They were simple children's drawings. A large house, 2 girls playing, and repeatedly the words Uncle Richard and Lily written in the shaky handwriting of a 7-year-old. "She didn't forget us," Richard murmured, touching the drawings affectionately. At that moment a neighbor approached the fence. "Are you a relative of Anna's?" "I'm her father. Do you know where she might be?" The elderly man looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Last night I saw Vera Stanton leaving the house with a suitcase and a little girl. It was about 2 in the morning." "Which way did they go?" "They got into a van driven by a man I've never seen around here. A suspicious-looking guy, looked like a criminal." The officer immediately asked the neighbor for more details. "Can you describe this man?" "Tall, bald, with several tattoos on his arm. The van was white, old, with no front license plate." Richard felt his blood run cold. Vera had handed Anna over to a stranger in the middle of the night. The worst scenarios began to play through his head. Back at the station, the officer managed to locate Vera Stanton at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. When they brought her in for interrogation, she was visibly nervous. "Mrs. Stanton," the officer began, "where is Anna?" "I already told you she ran away. Problem child, couldn't adapt. We have a witness who saw you leaving the house with Anna and an unknown man at 2 in the morning." Vera turned pale, but maintained her defensive posture. "I don't know what you're talking about." Richard, watching the interrogation from behind a one-way mirror, couldn't contain himself. He burst into the room and faced Vera directly. "Where is my daughter?" "Your daughter?" Vera laughed with disdain. "That girl isn't anyone's daughter. She was abandoned, remember? I have proof that Anna is my biological daughter. DNA test, documents, everything." Vera's expression changed completely when she heard about the evidence. For the first time, she seemed genuinely concerned. "Even if she were your daughter," she said, trying to buy time, "you abandoned her for 5 years. Why did you only decide to look for her now?" "Because I only just found out she was alive," Richard exploded. "My daughter was kidnapped when she was born. They spent 5 years making me believe she had died." Vera processed this information quickly. If Anna was truly the daughter of a wealthy man, and if there was a kidnapping ring involved, perhaps she could profit much more from the situation. "How much would you pay to have your daughter back?" she asked cynically. "Everything I have," Richard replied without hesitation. "Vera Stanton," the officer interrupted. "This constitutes kidnapping and extortion. If you don't reveal where Anna is immediately, you will be arrested." Vera realized she had gotten into a situation much bigger than she could handle. I didn't know she was your real daughter." "Where is she?" Richard shouted, completely losing his patience. Vera began to cry, finally understanding the gravity of the situation. "I handed her over to a man who said he could get a rich family for her in another state." "What man?" "He introduced himself as an adoption broker. He said Anna would live better with a real family. He paid me $5,000 to hand her over." Richard felt the world collapse. Vera had sold Anna to a child trafficker. His daughter, who had already been kidnapped once, was now in the hands of criminals again. "What was this man's name?" the officer asked. John Pierce. He said he worked with adoptions in D.C. The officer immediately began making calls to other states, trying to trace Anna's whereabouts. But Richard knew that with every passing minute, his daughter was moving further away from him. Meanwhile, Anna was living the worst nightmare of her life. The man Vera called John had taken her to an abandoned house on the outskirts of a city she didn't know. There were 5 other children there, all frightened and crying. "Be quiet," John would shout whenever a child cried. You'll all get new families soon." Anna, clutching the remains of her rag doll, tried to comfort a girl even smaller than herself. "Don't cry, someone is going to come find us." But as the days passed without proper food, without a bath, sleeping on the floor of a dirty, cold house, Anna began to lose hope that anyone would find her. "I want Uncle Richard," she whispered every night, looking through the dirty window in the hope of seeing his car arrive. What Anna didn't know was that John Pierce was not an adoption broker. He was Sandra Oliveira's right-hand man in the child trafficking ring. When he heard that Sandra had been arrested and had confessed about Anna, he decided to kidnap the girl again to sell her in another country, where it would be impossible to track her. "This girl is worth a fortune," he said over the phone to an accomplice. "The father is a millionaire and will pay anything to have her back." John planned to use Anna as bait to extort millions from Richard, but first he needed to take her far away where no one could find her. Back in Alabama, Richard received a call that made his blood run cold. "Mr. Montgomery?" It was a male voice, raspy and threatening. "I have your little daughter here with me. Who are you? Where is Anna?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you have 48 hours to gather $5 million. If you don't, you'll never see your girl again. Please, don't hurt her. She's just a child." "It's up to you. $5 million in cash. I'll call tomorrow with instructions on where to deliver it." The call ended, leaving Richard in total despair. $5 million in 48 hours was possible, but it would mean selling almost everything he owned. Worse still, it meant Anna was in the hands of dangerous criminals who wouldn't hesitate to hurt her if things didn't go as planned. Officer Banks put his hand on Richard's shoulder. "We're going to get this guy. We've already contacted the FBI. We have ways to trace the next call." But Richard knew he had to choose between saving Anna or risking losing her forever. And he already knew what his choice would be. That night, while Richard desperately organized his financial resources to gather the ransom money, he received a call from Miami that changed everything once more. "Mr. Montgomery," it was Mrs. Gable's tearful voice, "Lily has disappeared from the house. She left a note saying she was going to find Anna. She took the money from your office drawer and vanished." Richard felt the world collapse completely. Now both of his daughters were missing, one in the hands of kidnappers, and the other lost somewhere trying to save her. The nightmare had become even more terrifying, and Richard didn't know if he would be able to save them both in time. Richard's despair was total. Both his daughters were missing, Anna in the hands of criminals, and Lily lost trying to save her. He immediately called the Miami police, but the first hours of the search brought no clues regarding Lily's whereabouts. "How can a 6-year-old girl simply disappear?" Richard shouted over the phone to the detective in Miami. "Mr. Montgomery, we are checking all bus stations, airports, and train stops. Lily took enough money to buy a ticket to anywhere in the country." Meanwhile, Lily was much smarter than anyone imagined. The girl had overheard her father's conversations about Anna being in Alabama, and with the iron determination of a child, she decided she was going to bring her sister back home. Using the money she had taken from her father's office safe, money she knew he kept for emergencies, Lily had bought a bus ticket to Alabama. During the 15-hour trip, she memorized everything she could remember from the conversations about Vera Stanton and the town where Anna was. When she arrived at the bus station in Alabama, Lily showed a photo of Anna to taxi drivers until she found one who recognized the girl. Oh yes, the little girl who lived with Vera, but she vanished from there. They say Vera handed her over to some strange men. "What men?" Lily asked with the seriousness of an adult. "I don't know, kid, but people say there's an abandoned house way on the edge of town where they keep lost kids." Lily asked the taxi driver to take her there. The man, concerned about such a small child alone, tried to convince her to go to the police, but Lily was adamant. "If you don't take me, I'll walk. Anna is my sister, and I have to save her." The abandoned house was in an isolated area, surrounded by tall weeds. Lily approached carefully, and when she heard the voices of children crying inside, her heart raced. Anna was there. She waited until nightfall and then approached a broken window at the back of the house. What she saw made her hold back her tears. Anna was sitting in a corner, clutching the remains of her rag doll, comforting other smaller children who were crying in fear. "Anna," Lily whispered through the window. Anna raised her head quickly, unable to believe what she was hearing. "Lily? Lily, is that you?" The two girls hugged through the broken window, both crying with relief and happiness. "How did you find me?" Anna asked. "I promised I was going to be your sister forever. Sisters don't abandon each other. And your daddy, does he know you're here?" Lily shook her head. "I ran away from home to get you. He's very worried about you." At that moment, Anna felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks. True hope. Even in a terrible situation, knowing that someone loved her enough to come save her gave her strength she didn't know she had. "Lily, there's a mean man watching us. He said he's going to sell us to people far away." "He won't. I'm going to get you all out of here." Lily, with the courage and intelligence she had inherited from her father, had thought of a plan. Before leaving Miami, she had taken the old cell phone that Richard kept in his drawer, the same one he had used the night he first found Anna. She called the police and told them exactly where she was and what was happening. Then she called her father. "Daddy?" Lily whispered into the phone, hidden in the weeds behind the house. "Lily!" Richard shouted, the relief evident in his voice. "Where are you? I'm desperate." "I found Anna, Daddy. She's in an ugly house with other sad children. A mean man is guarding them here." "Lily, listen carefully. Tell me exactly where." "You are." Lily gave all the details of the location. "Daddy, Anna is very thin and very sad. She cries every night calling for you." Richard's heart broke. "I'll be there in 2 hours, Lily. You and Anna stay hidden and don't make a sound until I arrive with the police, do you understand?" "I understand, Daddy. What is it, my child?" "Anna is really my sister, right? Not just pretend?" Richard swallowed his tears. "Yes, Lily. Anna is your real sister, your blood sister." "I knew it," Lily said with the simple wisdom of a child. "Since she came to our house, I felt she was part of our family." While they waited for the rescue, Lily managed to pass food through the broken window to Anna and the other children. She had brought cookies and sandwiches in her backpack, thinking Anna might be hungry. "Why did you come to get me?" Anna asked, slowly eating the sandwich she had received. "Because you're my sister, and because when Mommy died I was very lonely. Then you came, and I wasn't lonely anymore. I couldn't let you be alone either." Anna held Lily's hand through the window. "I love you, too, Lily. You're the first person in the world who treated me like real family. And Uncle Richard? Uncle Richard is special. Since I saw him for the first time, I felt something different, like he was important to me, but I didn't know why." The two girls talked softly until they heard sirens approaching. John Pierce, who was sleeping drunk in a corner of the house, woke up at the noise and tried to flee, but the police had already surrounded the entire area. When Richard arrived with the officers, he found his two daughters hugging, protecting the other, kidnapped children. The scene made him cry with emotion and relief. "Daddy!" Anna and Lily shouted at the same time, running to throw themselves into his arms. Richard picked them up, one on each side, feeling for the first time in 5 years that his family was complete again. "My daughters," he whispered, kissing the faces of the two girls. "My two brave girls." "Daddy," Anna said, looking into Richard's eyes, "why did I always feel you were special? Since the very first day?" Richard smiled through his tears. "Because you are my daughter, Anna, my real daughter. You were born from my love for Mommy Catherine. Lily's mommy, who is also your mummy. Catherine was your real mother, and Lily is your real sister." Anna processed this information with the seriousness of a child who had lived through much suffering. "And Mommy Lucy?" "Mommy Lucy was an angel who took care of you when I couldn't. She saved you and loved you like a real daughter too." "So now I have 2 mommies and a sister and a daddy?" Anna asked, trying to understand her new reality. "Exactly, and we all love you very much." The other kidnapped children were rescued and reunited with their families. John Pierce was arrested, as was Vera Stanton, who was charged with child trafficking and child neglect. 3 months later, back at the mansion in Miami, the life of the Montgomery family had been completely transformed. Anna still had occasional nightmares, but she was recovering quickly with the help of a psychologist specialized in childhood trauma. Lily and Anna became truly inseparable. They shared a room, games, secrets, and dreams. The house, which had been silent and cold for so long, now overflowed with laughter and life. "Daddy," Anna said one night while Richard was reading a story to the two girls before bed, "can I visit Mommy Lucy's grave?" "Of course, we'll all go together this weekend." At the cemetery, Anna placed flowers on the simple grave where Lucy had been buried with Richard's help. The headstone read, "Lucy Stanton, Mother of the Heart, Guardian Angel." "Thank you, Mommy Lucy," Anna whispered, "for saving me and loving me until I found my real family." Afterward, they visited Catherine's grave, where Anna met her biological mother. "Mommy Catherine," Anna said, placing more flowers, "Lily took very good care of me. Now we are sisters forever." Lily held Anna's hand. "Mommy would be happy knowing you came home." That night at home, Richard tucked the two girls into bed. They insisted on sleeping in the same room, one bed beside the other. "Daddy," Anna said, "I still can't believe you're my real father." "Why?" "Because you are so good, and I always thought people who were too good for me didn't really exist." Richard kissed his daughter's forehead. "Anna, you deserve all the love in the world, and you will receive all the love in the world every day of your life. Promise." "And I promise too," Lily added. "Sisters take care of each other forever." Anna smiled, finally feeling truly safe. "So now I have a real family." "The realest of all," Richard replied, "and nothing and no one will ever separate us again." 6 months later, Richard created a foundation in memory of Catherine and Lucy to help children in vulnerable situations. Anna and Lily, despite their young age, helped by visiting shelters and distributing toys and affection. "You know, Daddy," Anna said one day playing in the garden with Lily, "I think everything that happened was to teach us. That family isn't just who you're born with, it's who chooses to stay with you." Richard smiled, watching his two daughters play under the golden afternoon sun. Anna was right. Family was choice, love, protection, and unity. And finally, after so much suffering and separation, the Montgomery family was complete, united by the strongest love there is, the love that overcomes any obstacle and transforms pain into hope, darkness into light, and loneliness into home. Anna would never again scavenge trash looking for food. Lily would never again be alone in her grief, and Richard would never again wonder what happened to his lost daughter. They found each other, and that was all that mattered. The end.